Good morning, and thank you for joining us for episode 1 of season 2 of the Soul Food Initiative. We're here at Slippery Rock University of Pennsylvania at the McCoskey Center, and the Soul Food Initiative is a collaboration between the McCoskey Center and the Department of Strategic Communication and Media. And we seek to explore the connection between food and culture. So today I am going to be focusing on the Amazigh culture of Morocco, or actually of North Africa. And I'm going to make a dish to celebrate Yenair, which is the new year for the Amazigh culture and people. And I'm also going to be making a Moroccan dish, which is called the Tagine. It's going to be fish with some potatoes and spices and a lot of other interesting ingredients. So we're going to start by making the fish tagine. So for this particular dish, I have here some mahi. We're going to cut this fish in small pieces so that it can fit in that pot. So along with the fish, we're going to use some potatoes. So here I already have some scalloped potatoes. So these are some scalloped potatoes that I put in the pot with some olive oil. And I have some bay leaves, some fresh bay leaves. Typically we use dried bay leaves, but you can use fresh or dried. Either way works. I also put some salt and pepper, and I'm going to put some spices now. So about half a teaspoon cumin. So cumin is a very common spice in Moroccan cooking. It's a little smoky, so a little bit goes a long way. I'm also going to use coriander, which is the dried form of cilantro. So it's the cilantro seed that's dried up and ground. So I'm going to use about 1 teaspoon, one teaspoon. So a little bit of that. I'm going to use a little bit of chili powder, about, I guess, half a teaspoon of chili powder. And just a dash of cayenne pepper. So I'm going to add to the potatoes some peppers. So these are just regular bell peppers, red and yellow. You can put any color that you want. All right, and then I'm going to put some jalapenos for some heat. So very pretty here. And I'm going to add some garlic. So you can chop up your garlic. I like to put it whole. So it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cloves of garlic. Oops. So it's still pretty frozen. So I'm gonna just cut these, they're like mahi steaks. I'm gonna cut them in half. So I'm gonna share with you a little bit of history about the Amazigh people, because I said I'm going to make a dish. It's actually our dessert today. It's called Tagoula, and it's not in Arabic, because most people assume that Moroccans or Moroccan people are all of Arab descent and speak Arabic. That is not the case. So the original people, the indigenous people of Morocco, and actually of all of North Africa, are called the Amazigh people. Some of you might know them as the Berber people, but actually that name is no longer used because it has the barbaric connotation. They were called barbarian by the Greeks. And so the Amazigh people have tried to change that to the Amazigh, which means the free people, because barbarian means uncivilized. and it's kind of a slur of sorts to call someone barbarian. So as I was saying, the Amazigh people are the original and the indigenous people of North Africa. And North Africa is a region that includes 4 countries: Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya. So the Amazigh people were recorded in history about 3,000 years ago. So they've been around for a long time. So let's put the fish back here so that it can join the potatoes in the pot. So as I was saying, the Amazigh people used to be the original inhabitants of North Africa and of Morocco until the Arab came and conquered Morocco and North Africa to spread Islam. And that was about 1,500 years ago. So exactly about 620, 650. I'm going to add the rest of my ingredients here, and I'll share more about Amazigh history with you. So I'm gonna put some tomatoes. Okay. And some lemons. Just it's nice to have some citrusy flavors with fish. And I'm gonna actually also squeeze some lemon on top. So in terms of spices, I'm gonna put some salt, some pepper, and I have some interesting spices here also that I'm gonna share with you. So first, salt, that's essential as always. So you need your salt to make food taste good. Not too much, but just enough to give it some nice flavor. This is a new mix of spice that I just discovered. It's called Moroccan spice. It's a mix of allspice, black pepper, cayenne, cinnamon, cloves, and coriander. It's called Casablanca. So I'm gonna put some of this in the dish. So about, let's see, half a teaspoon. I have some herbes de Provence, which is just some dried herbs. There is some lavender here. You can see, so these are herbes de Provence. It's a fennel pollen spice blend. So it's thyme, lavender, fennel. So it's a mix of some interesting spices. So this is a rather unusual ingredient to use for fish, but I do like fennel. So fennel is a seed, and this is the ground version of the seed. So I'm gonna put about 1/4 teaspoon of fennel. I love the smell and taste of fennel, and it's actually very good for your gut. So it helps with digestion. So there goes the fennel. And let's see, I think I'm gonna put a little bit of ground cloves, just for fun. But ground cloves are very, very strong, so just really a pinch. So here I have some eggs that are boiling for the tagoula, the Amazigh dish that I'm making. I also have already cooked some cracked wheat, which is used for the tagoula, the the dish that I'm making. So it is definitely done. All right, so we had to transfer the fish to a bigger pot because the other one was a bit small. All right, this actually is turning out to be very colorful. I like it. I'm also going to add some parsley and some bay leaves. So there's some parsley and then some fresh bay leaves. So this is looking pretty colorful now, and we're going to cover it and turn up the heat on it a little bit. I think the fish is gonna do its thing. We're gonna move on to the tagoula, the Amazigh dish. So this Amazigh dish is made with cracked wheat and honey, some dates. So the Amazigh people used to be nomadic people in the desert of North Africa. And so a lot of people who live in the desert eat dates because dates are very sweet and high in calories. So, and there's not a lot of produce that grows in the desert, so dates are one of the fruits that do pretty well in the desert. Just like prickly pears, they grow in the desert as well. So dates are indigenous to North Africa. People in Algeria, Tunisia, and Morocco and Libya eat a lot of dates. So this dish uses these particular type of dates. They're called the Majoul dates. They're from North Africa. They're pretty big now. They make them in California as well. We're also going to use some almonds for the dish and honey. And I'm going to add little touch, my personal touch, vanilla to the dish. Let's check on the fish, see what's going on there. Looks like the spices are infusing the fish, the potatoes are doing well. So as I was saying earlier, the Amazigh people are indigenous to North Africa. They were recorded in history about 3,000 years ago. Also, the Amazigh were recorded in Egyptian history, and one of the pharaohs is supposedly of Amazigh descent. The other interesting thing about the Amazigh people or the Amazigh culture is that one of the main figures of Christianity, of Catholicism in particular, and that Saint Augustine of Hippo is actually a North African Amazigh or Berber. He lived in Algeria, and North Africa was colonized by the Roman Empire. So a lot of the elite of North Africa would go to Rome to study. And so Saint Augustine, or Augustine of Hippo, went to Rome and studied there, and he became a bishop. And he wrote the Christian doctrine, which is one of the foundational texts of Catholicism. So he's actually known to be the father of Catholicism. And because the Roman Empire, when they colonized North Africa, a lot of people converted to Christianity. And so when the Arabs conquered North Africa in the 1600s, there was a lot of battles with the Amazigh tribes for control over the area. And ultimately, despite, the Amazigh people were pretty powerful fighters. And in particular, there was a woman, very famous female warrior, who battled against the Arabs. So I'm gonna decorate this a little bit. Maybe I'll add some. Gonna add a little bit of vanilla here. I'm also going to add a little bit of cinnamon. All right. So I'm gonna continue decorating here. So as I was saying, the Amazigh are known for being very tough fighters, and they have a lot of women in their history that have fought against the Arab invaders. Add a little bit of meat. So they gained control over North Africa, but many dynasties will come that are a combination of Arabs and Amazigh. What happened in that conquest is that a lot of the Amazigh people, where most actually, became second-class citizens. And there was a lot of discrimination because they were not Arabs. And because of the connection between Arabic language and people of Arab descent and Islam. Because Islam came from Saudi Arabia, from Arabia, so the Amazigh people were discriminated against for years, for centuries actually. But in Morocco in recent years, about 10 years ago, there was a pretty strong movement for the recognition of the culture of the Amazigh people and the language as one of the national languages of Morocco. And now the Amazigh language, and there's varieties of Amazigh language in Morocco, because there's a variety of tribes, different tribes, and they each have their own language. There are similarities, of course, but there are some differences. So they each have their, so there is recognition of the Amazigh language and culture. And now it's in the constitution that the Amazigh language is, along with Arabic, a national language in Morocco. The only word I actually know in Amazigh is bread, and it's aghroum. I don't speak any of the language. All right, so I'm going to put some almonds. So we're gonna push this. So this dish with cracked wheat is a symbol of the new year, like renewal. Wheat is always associated, especially for farmers, with renewal. So the Amazigh people still continue in North Africa, especially in Morocco and Algeria, to ask for their rights. I'm actually looking at trying to look at the design there. So they continue to ask for rights and to be to have their cultural rights, linguistic rights recognized, and not to be subjected to discrimination, whether it's in jobs. It's very similar to what the black community faces in the United States. And in Algeria, they're called the Qbail. It's a different tribe. In Morocco, in the last 10 years, there have been a lot of revolts in northeastern Morocco, in a city by the name of Nador, where a lot of people have asked for a change in the government and to have the right to express their culture, their language, their traditions. So a lot of people ended up in jail or killed during this revolt. And there is one of the leaders of this rebellion is still in jail as we speak. I think that fish is almost done. Okay. I think the last thing we need to add here is eggs. And I boiled some eggs. I'm gonna cool them off and peel them. So North Africa or the Maghreb, the four countries I talked about, Morocco, Libya, Tunisia, used to be part of this same empire. It was called the Great Maghreb or Numidia. And it's later with colonization and different empires that ruled the country that those countries formed their own borders and basically isolated. It's interesting when the French colonized Morocco and also Algeria and Tunisia, but in particular Morocco, they tried to use the Arabs against the Berbers. And they tried to do what Moroccans called separate to control. So you separate people based on their ethnicity or religion so that you can better control them. So if they become enemies and they fight each other, they cannot unite against the enemy that is trying to colonize them. So the Amazigh and the Arab tribes figured that out pretty quick with the French colonizers and actually united to kick them out of Morocco and to fight against the French colonization. Maybe a couple of minutes and it should be ready. Okay, I'll add a couple more. So I'm going to heat up some bread because we typically eat a tagine with bread because tagine has a sauce and people dip the bread in the sauce, or some people like to make sandwiches with the bread. So I'm gonna heat up some pita bread. Unfortunately, we don't have any Moroccan bread. I think this is pretty good like this. Excuse me. All right. I'm going to put a little bit of fresh parsley on top, just because I don't have cilantro. Otherwise, I would put fresh cilantro on top. So that's done. I'm gonna put the pita to warm up in the oven. Okay. And we can start serving. So I'm gonna put a little bit of potatoes. So you have some potatoes. They're nice and caramelized. And a little bit of lemon. And the last thing is the tagoula. So we're gonna put a little bit of the cracked wheat. Gonna put a date, a little egg, and I'm gonna put a little bit more, a few more almonds, some honey, and voila. So this is the fish tagine with some potatoes, tomatoes, some peppers, the tagoula, and then the bread. Thank you.